Well, good morning, everyone. Sydney, I'm glad you were able to join us. I'm particularly excited for this one because actually one of the agents on our team reached out to me and said, Ashley, there's this really cool appraiser on Instagram. Could you get him in the office? And I was like, sure.
You
So
bet.
I reached out to Sidney. Some of you might know him from Instagram. He does some really awesome. By the way, Sidney, I love your Instagram. Not only are you an expert with appraisals, but you're really great with like social media and posting videos and content that's engaging for everybody. So we have not had an appraiser or any sort of appraisal training in a really long time on our team. And I feel like it's something that is really important. And especially with newer agents on our team, I feel like that's really important to go over. So,
Awesome.
yeah, we wanted to
Glad to
have you
be
on
here.
today to be able to share your
For some
screen. And
reason,
yeah,
my Bluetooth doesn't want to connect. Let me see. I don't want to bore everybody in the office. Give me 1 second, guys. Good. Thank you. Thank you for the cool appraiser thing, Can you guys hear me? Sweet, awesome. Yeah, so thanks for having me, guys. I want to try to bring as much value as possible. So what I want to cover today is somewhat of the appraisal process and comp selection. I feel like sometimes there's a disconnect between the appraiser and the realtors, and then the realtors and their clients. Like I don't know how long everyone's been in real estate, but I feel like 6, 7 years ago we had the MLS, and then those were like the golden gates. You know what I mean? But now you guys go to a listing appointment, and the client seems like they're the professionals. They're like, oh, Zillow told me this, Zillow told me that, and they just want you guys to put a number on there without any discussion. So hopefully after today, either you will agree with me or agree to disagree, but we can just jump into it right now. So let me go ahead and share my screen so we can get right into it. Let's see here. And if you guys have questions, Ashley, I don't know if you want to manage that, but if you guys have a question, just ask it. It won't throw me off, just so we can kind of get into a flow. It might work out better that way.
yeah, I'll keep an eye on the chat for you too.
Okay, sweet. Let me see, share screen. Okay, so does everyone see my screen that says appraisal process, what's important? Yes? Okay, cool. All right, so I kind of want to start with the basics. What I mean by that, let's just kind of start with the beginning. I think it's super important to understand comp selection and our guidelines. And this is important for many reasons, whether you are doing a rebuttal for an appraisal that I think that's not coming in value, or it has to do with setting yourself up for success when it comes to listing a property. So when it comes to size, it's 20%. As you can see, I also have 10 to 15% for condos. Typically, condos are smaller. And so, if you have a 700 square foot condo, even lenders themselves, they want to see the comps within, 650 and 750, like really tight, right? So what 20% means is if you have a 2,000 square foot house, we're only looking at comps between 1,600 square feet and 2,400 square feet. Now, it's important to meet your appraiser at the property, right? Because if the comp is 2,401, it's not to say that it's not a good comp. It's just to say that I'm not going to have that within my parameters, right? So it could be just outside of that, and it could be on the same street, but it's not going to populate within that 20%. Okay, so be really careful when you guys are doing that. So if you have something that, again, is just slightly over, but it's in the neighborhood, or in that subdivision, it's probably still a good comp, and we may want to use that. So when it comes to distance, we say 1 mile. Now, 1 mile, I don't know where you guys farm, but 1 mile in downtown San Diego could be, it could be from Marina District to Little Italy, right? Which could be a mile, but they're outside of that specific neighborhood or subdivision. So I like for you to stay within that subdivision first, within that mile. If you're in, Hillcrest, within a mile, you can be in Mission Hills or in Bankers Hill. So although they're the same zip code, you really want to stay within that market. Okay. And then months back, it's up to 6 months back, but please, hopefully no one's looking at comps back in February, right? And here's the real reason. Let's say you're going to go sign a listing appointment today. Hopefully everyone is, right? And you start to look at comp data 3-4 months from today, which is still fine. But then it takes you 30 days to get the property on the market ready. Then it takes you another 30 days to get into the contract. And then I come out, or one of my peers comes out within that 17-day contingency period. So that comp you looked at 4 months ago is now 6-7 months old. And it's not going to be used in the equation when we're looking at the most recent sale data. So if you can stay within 60 days, perfect, because by the time I come out or one of my peers, that 60-day-old comp is now 4 months old, which is still very relative or relevant to today's market and not 7-8 months out. So that's why I say 60 days, the sooner to the current date, the better. So this is like basic comp selection, track home. You see this all day long. Then I have what we call competitive guidelines, right? Now, a competitive sale is one that, let's say the home is an historic home, or it has a tennis court, it's been completely remodeled, has a view of the ocean, whatever it is, it has specific features. So competitive is more based on features than, the generic size and things of that nature. You'll look on the bottom, it has distance and it says credible results. Now, I recently appraised a property on Mission Beach, and now it was facing the boardwalk. Okay. Now, if Mission Beach didn't have a recent sale on the boardwalk, I can go clear up to Carlsbad, which also has a boardwalk, even though that's 35 miles away, right? And then I would look at how that property is treated on Carlsbad boardwalk versus maybe facing the alley or across the street, and then use the same methodology down to Mission Beach. But then I would make a percentage adjustment between the two markets. So predominant values in Carlsbad Coastal versus predominant values in Mission Beach Coastal, make those adjustments, but then I can make the adjustment factor between boardwalk homes and non-boardwalk homes. Now, if this is kind of confusing, perfect, hire me, right? So no, so this is competitive. So we have comparable, which is like the basic stuff, and then we have competitive. Now, I don't want to arm realtors. I know realtors, you guys are good at what you do. Now, I don't want you to use this, well, Sidney said, and then start looking at comps 5 miles away, because it will help your listing appointment or appease your sellers. Say, oh yeah, we found a comp, it's 5 miles away, it's competitive. When you have things in your subdivision or neighborhood that are legitimate comps, but they don't necessarily help your scenario. So you don't want to put yourself in a place where it's in contract, and then the appraiser comes out and goes, well, there's 6 comps in this neighborhood, but you're stretching and looking, 4 or 5 miles out because that's a higher, development or a superior neighborhood. So be very careful in how you guys use this information. All right. Alshie, I'll let you pause me if there's any questions or anything like that. Okay.
Yeah, I just want to clarify really quick. So the distance one, you were basically saying if there's not comps within that like 1 mile to support your listing, then you can go outside of that and look for something next to the pier, for example. If your upcoming listing is next to the pier, you can kind of like go outside of that if you're not finding comps within your area, right?
This is true, right? But I want you to look at this. You're the advocate, for your client, but I want you to take your lenses off and be very objective and not subjective. Okay. So this is where the fine line comes. So, and here's the other thing, when it goes location, external influences, if your home is off a busy street, I also need to find comps as an appraiser off a busy street, because the market needs to dictate busy street versus cul-de-sac or interior street, things like that. So it works both ways. When it comes to competitive guidelines, competitive sales and features. Now, if your property is off of Kettner and you're in Little Italy, that's not a negative impact, because it's actually a positive thing. Like everybody wants to be on Kettner or India or whatever. So you just have to know your market area and what the comps dictate to know how this will influence either your list price, contract price, or appraised value.
Gotcha.
All
Thank
right.
you for clarifying.
All right, let's move on. I like to call this the realtor versus appraiser effect. Um, so typically, this is how a property is priced out, right? It's a 2,000 square foot house. The neighborhood is at $500 a square foot. You're like, okay, I'm going to list this property for $1 million, right? And I get it. This is essentially how it works. Sure, if they have a pool, they've done something a little bit extra, you'll try to figure out what's that additional value that maybe I listed at 1.1 because they just did a full remodel, right? But this is not how appraisers adjust. Appraisers don't adjust $500 a square foot for differences. And this is really important. Let's say you're on that listing appointment and, your client says, hey, well, down the street, this other home sold for $1 million, but they were only 1,800 square feet, right? So everyone's looking they're going to do the simple math, $200 square foot difference between your property and the comp. And everyone's looking for an adjustment factor of $100,000. And when the appraiser doesn't do that, everyone's pissed off and goes, well, the appraiser doesn't know what they're talking about. And, I've seen this plenty of times. It's safe to say that typically when it comes to square footage adjustment alone, it's going to be somewhere around 15 to 20. About 15 to 20%. So at $500 a square foot, we're probably adjusting that price per square foot on just square footage at about maybe $100, $150 for the adjustment factor. So that same 200 square feet, it's probably going to be a $25,000 adjustment, not a $100,000 adjustment. Okay, and this is the reason why. You guys have all seen appraisal reports. It's the comp. They call it the sales comparison grid. It's where all the comps are, all the numbers are displayed, right? There's about 18 to 20 different items on the SCA grid that is all a part of the $500 a square foot or the $1,000 a square foot or whatever it is. So we have to take consideration of the location, the view, the design, the quality condition, bedroom count, square footage, does it have amenities, fireplace, condition. All of these things are a part of $500 a square foot. So this is why we're not just going to solely base or make adjustments at that same value just for square footage alone, because that has to be divided up to, let's say 20 different things. Okay. So just set yourself up for success when you guys see that, what you don't want to do is kind of go, well, I'm just going to go for the gusto and says, well, the appraiser should have adjusted that. So this is why this is super important. As you can see, like I'm structuring this not only to assist you guys, but how you can actually speak to your clients, because at the end of the day, because there's the Redfins, there's the Zillows, everyone feels like all of a sudden they're the professional and they know, what they're talking about when really they don't. They're emotionally involved, and we kind of have to bring that down, because I do a lot of different kind of appraisals, and I always have to walk people off the ledge, whether it's investor, homeowner, attorney, whatever it is. And I think these kind of conversations, we need to educate our clients essentially, because they already feel like they know what's going on. So this is like the adjustment factor when it comes to square footage, and why, appraisers will. Now, I'll tell you this, not every appraiser is a good appraiser, just like every realtor is not a good realtor and every plumber is not a good plumber, right? So you guys have to assume that the appraiser coming out just doesn't know shit, right? Let's just be frank. So is it right? No, but you have a job to do. And so you have to prepare yourself to say, I'm going to prepare because this appraiser coming in may not know anything, may not know my market area. I farm here. They don't go in caravans. Like real estate, you have to feel the space around you, right? So you guys go to caravans, you know the layout of properties. So when you meet your appraiser at the property, it's important to go, hey, I know this sold for that, but the layout was terrible. It was like this, it was like that. Like I go to caravans, but not every appraiser does, right? Because I just love real estate. I want to feel the houses too. Like, oh, this is going to be on the market. Cool. I may be appraising this one day, and I have my team do the same, but not everyone is going to do that. And so it's really the pressure or the responsibilities on you to prepare for those kind of moments. So I was talking about different types of appraisals. So here's some few that are going to be really important in the coming years or even days and months. So pre-list is prior to your home hitting the market. it can be important. If it's a track home, you probably don't need it. But if it's something very special, it has an equestrian, facilities or whatever it is, you may want to have a conversation with. It doesn't have to be me. It could be another appraiser you guys work with, or even your team to kind of figure out how to get this done. ADUs are super popular right now. SB9 lot splits, those two things, ADUs and SB9 lot splits, are probably the one thing a homeowner can do right now to increase their value in their homes. I've heard that ADUs, appraisers are going out and giving a $50,000 valuation in ADUs. It's more like a $250,000 valuation. SB9 lot splits, I've recently done some where, the single family home by itself was worth $800,000. They did some lot splits, built some homes on it. And now that same lot is worth $2.5 million. Talk about a value add, right? So whether you sold a property a year ago, 5 years ago, 10, 15 years ago, I feel like those are the kind of conversations that need to be had. I think I read a stat recently that said, I think it was like 88% of people don't reuse their realtor, meaning only 12% of people see the value that the realtor is giving them. So I think when we're having these conversations about maybe managing your portfolio and not treating it as a transaction is another way to increase, because there's not a lot of, the thing now is there's not a lot of inventory. We'll create the inventory by maximizing your client's portfolio and building out their lot. So anyway, that's ADU SB9. There's price adjustments for those properties that are testing the market, quote unquote, right? Let's test the market, which ends up hurting your client even more so. There's these fancy names, it's like price enhancements and which I find to be hysterical, but it's basically we messed up the first time, we didn't hit it right, and so now we're going to keep lowering it, and you end up selling it lower than you should have sold for in the first place. I get it, everybody wants the listing, but sometimes we need to have, and I have these tough conversations with clients all the time, like, it's not like, here's the data, you can do whatever you want, right? But here's the data, and here's what the data is pointing to. So but yeah, divorce, immigration. The reason why I give you guys these is because when life happens, people go to their realtors first before anyone else. Oh, I'm getting divorced, or I just inherited a property, or I'm marrying someone from another country and I need to get an immigration appraisal. Like, all those kind of things are, I think, a part of the whole gamut. So all right, let's go. Low appraisal, is it? What's next? A friend of mine, Oscar, he's a lender, and he says, I told my client, he works a lot of realty. He goes, the appraisal always comes in. It's never the appraisal. People go, oh, the appraisal didn't come in value. No, the appraisal always comes in value, assuming that the appraiser knows what they're doing, right? And I think a lot of times people feel like the appraiser goes out there to debunk value. Like, oh, I don't like granite, so I'm going to give it negative 10 grand. And that's really not the case. What makes it easier for a purchase over a refinance is there's a price that we can see, right? So we get the purchase contract, we go, okay, this home's in contract for $1.3 million. The question that I'm asking is there enough market data to support that price, right? And then so what do we go back to, as far as we can go back to comp selection, what's in the area, or is it a very unique property? Is it a Victorian home with historic, designation? Okay, well, I need to go far and wide for that historic home, Victorian style, historic designation, those kind of things. Or, so is it low? Why is it low? What is it based on? So when you guys are looking at rebuttals, what are you rebutting the appraisal on? Is it the location of the comps? Is it the size difference, condition, amenities, distance, the date of sale, as I said, right? Is it too old? Or so like during COVID, we were making positive adjustments month by month because the market was just blowing up. Now some markets have stabilized, some are still going up, some are slightly kind of declining. So how are you listing your property? One. And then if it doesn't come in or it's not supported, how are you rebutting that? Like, what are you basing that on? Now I have an example of one that I did recently. Like, we don't get a lot of rebuttals, to be honest, because we're just so badass. But we did get a rebuttal. And this was a teaching moment. The realtor had a lot of choice words for me, which was fun. But I'll tell you the scenario. So I believe this one was in Golden Hill. Now, this one had to do with zoning. So the zoning on it was RM, I believe it was RM 3-7, which says you can have one dwelling unit for every 1,500 square feet of lot size. Okay. RM 3-7, one dwelling unit for every 1,500 square feet of lot size. Now, the subject property was 2,800 square feet. The lot size is 2,800 square feet. So we call that legal non-conforming. It's legal. The city's not going to say make you tear it down. It's legal. At one point, it was legal, but it no longer conforms with current zoning. Okay. So the comp that this realtor said I should have used was on the same street, matter of fact, but I didn't use it for a reason. The reason was this comp, also RM 3-7, was 6,000 square feet of lot size. So they can have up to 4 units built out. The subject can only max out, they can't even build another unit, right? They're already legal non-conforming. So I didn't use it because the price reflected that, right? If I would have used it, the adjustments would have been so astronomical, it just didn't make sense. And I'm not just going to throw a comp in just to appease someone, right? So, and I also explained this to the realtor. Of course, they didn't want to hear at the time, but now it becomes great educational information for you and your team. So that's why you have, so if you're in areas where the zoning is changing or it has commercial influence, there's a couple of things that we need to figure out as well. The lender wants to know, will you be able to have a rebuild letter? Okay, a rebuild letter meaning if a car ran through this building, could you rebuild it as a single family or a multifamily, or does it have to be built as a commercial building, right? Sometimes they give you a 6-month window to have plans in place and all. So you have to kind of know this and do this homework, because this could also influence the value. Again, you have to assume the appraiser doesn't know what they're doing. Remember that? And so you have to figure this all out, or you have to go ahead and get a pre-list appraisal to figure this all out. It's up to you. But this is valuable because there is value when it comes to zoning and additional units that can be built versus a comp down the street that can no longer have that. And so what do you think the value is going to be? It's going to be plus whatever, 200,000, 100,000, whatever that may be that the market reflects. So aside from comp data, supportive data, how are you supporting your list price? How are you deriving to that list price based on the zoning in that market area or whatever else that, you guys can figure out there. So any questions before I move on?
Yeah, we had a quick question in the chat. Tulane asks, how do we evaluate the value per square feet of an upgraded home versus a non-upgraded comp? Is there an average value added for upgraded comps?
Thanks for your question, Tulane. The answer is no, but I'm going to show you how to do it. So there's never, this is why I love it. There's never like a specific answer for or like number. So like over COVID, everybody was having like COVID babies. I had a COVID pool. Now my COVID pool is beautiful. Okay. I spent like 150 grand on this beautiful pool, yard, all this kind of stuff. I know when I get this home appraised, if I got it appraised, I'd probably get $45,000 to $60,000 an adjustment factor for my pool, right? I get it. They're not going to give me dollar for dollar for my improvement. The way you go about figuring out remodel, updated, non-remodel needs a lot of work is creating clusters or an Excel spreadsheet on, okay, and use the MLS. This is why it's really important that realtors, really write their MLS, the remark section really well. So let's say a home is average or needs work. Okay, well, let me get a cluster of homes that are average, needs work. What did those sell for? Okay, those homes sold for $750. Then let's get a cluster of homes that have been updated or remodeled, right? Those homes sold for $875. Then let's go for completely gutted, all new, built from the studs out. Those ones sold for $1 million. Well, that'll give you the difference between $750 and $1 million is complete gut, right? So that's a $350 or $250,000 increase. And then the ones from, needs work to updated, remodeled were $875. So that's going to give you, plus $125. So whether you spent $125, you spent $75, or you spent $200, the market's only going to return $125 from the remodeled home to an average home. So this is where you can assist your clients on how much to spend. Should we do a remodel before we list? Sometimes I tell people, no, it's going to cost you too much to put into this property, and the market's only going to return the exact amount back, somewhere close to that or just a little bit over it. That the risk is too much, so don't do it, right? So, you have clients that sometimes are on the shelf like, well, maybe I should do a light remodel. No, show them the comp data. Here's what a light remodel gives you. Here's what your home looks like right now. It's not worth it. Then you got to. It's just not worth it. So, or sometimes you're like, you know what? Let's put this home in a market because I can see a trend, an upward trend in sales, and then I can also see a downward trend in rates. Well, let's pump the brakes. Let's do a full remodel that may take us 6 months, but then we know we can get X amount back, right? So this is where strategy comes into place. There is no set number, but you can figure that out by going to MLS, looking at cluster of homes with each one of those items, and really looking at, is it worth it? What's my return on my investment, and things of that nature. Like they say, the things you do to your property are for yourself until the day you sell it. And then the market, when I say the market, the buyers will dictate what they'll return on that investment. So, during COVID, it's like you didn't have to do anything and people would take anything, right? But it's also like there's scarcity and available homes and all those kind of things. So you have to know what's happening in the market, what the upward or downward trend is, and how and when you should release that property into the market and how you should do that. So hopefully that answers your question in a more robust way. But yes, and even downtown, people go, oh, 10,000 per floor. It's like total bullshit, right? It's like maybe that day, but next month it could be 15. And we know like floors, essentially now, maybe 11 down, you're only getting cityscape. And maybe from 15 up, you may get some sort of a view, right? So you just have to know, is there a building going up? Or in Mission Valley or Fashion Valley area, the golf course is going to be a beautiful new development. Someone was like, oh yeah, I have a golf course view. I go, no, you don't. That golf course has been like completely terminated. That I can't give you credit for something I know that's not there. It's all dried out. So it's not a golf course view. It's going to be a beautiful new cityscape. But right now there's no value towards that. So when you're on a listing, if you know what's happening in the market area, like, oh, well, they've terminated this golf course, don't advertise it as like, oh, golf course view, because you're just setting yourself up for, it's just not going to work out very positive towards you. So if that makes all sense.
Hey, Sidney, I
Yes.
have a quick question too, or maybe
Yes,
a couple
please.
of them. And I apologize if it's been said because I was a little bit late due to another meeting. But do you
What do
guys
you think, guys? You think we should answer this question again? Or just
yeah.
No, just kidding. Go
So
for it.
let's say the purchase price is 800,000. They're doing a loan. Do you guys just search for comps that validate that 800,000 and then you kind of stop there, or
That's a good question.
if there were ones that were comps that were 820, clearly good comps 820, do you say 820? Because it seems like most of the appraisals I get, they're at value, and that's all we really care about, especially when there's
and that's what, and that's a disservice not only to you, it's a disservice to the market, it's a disservice to your client. We never hit a number because I don't know what your buyer is going to do if they're coming with equity, right? So there's two things that happen. We don't hit a number because I'm looking for market value. Now, yes, it's 800,000. What I'm looking for is I put in the address and I go, what are my comp selections within 20% mile radius, and that's sold within the past like 90 days. What are my comp data? Now, whatever it spits out, I may have an 865, I may have an 830, I may have a 750, and I'm trying to figure, once I have those comp selections, I'm like, okay, why 865? What's the difference between that and my subject property? We start making those comparisons. You may even have like a 950, and then you'll have like a 500. We call those outliers. So we want to pay attention to the cluster of sales, and then you have these outliers. So yes, sometimes I appraise property. I go, man, this agent left a lot of money on the table. For whatever reason, they just undersold it. And there's sometimes I'm like, how in the hell did they come up with this price, right? So there's a few things that I can get into, and this is a great question. So the other thing is you have market price and you have market value. Market value is what most people would pay for under duress for a property, what most people would pay for. Then you have the one-off where a person goes, I've always wanted to live in this neighborhood and I'm going to spend 150 grand over the asking price because I want this house. That's market price. That's not market value. And the reason why we know that, because that becomes an outlier. Now, I will call the agent and go, hey, I noticed that your property sold 150 grand over everybody else. What's going on with that? Oh, it was a cash buyer. They just wanted this house. They appraised over the appraised value. Perfect. I can use it as a comp, but I have to discount it to the market. So I may use it and discount it 150 grand and go, this is where, you know, if it was exposed to the market under normal circumstances, here's where that property would lie. Okay. What's the other thing I wanted to mention? So yeah, I mean, it's a good question in regards to hitting numbers. And your clients may ask, like, if it's a purchase or refi, I hear that it's appraised differently. It shouldn't be, because market value is market value always. The only thing with the purchase is we have the number. Is there enough data, remember, to achieve? Is there enough market data to support this number? If there is, perfect. But then we make our adjustments. But yeah, it is like I did an appraisal review one time. I'm going to give you these numbers. It's not the real numbers, but it was just this ridiculous. I think let's say the property was like 650, 327, because it was like a feng shui thing. They wanted the numbers to be a certain way. I get that. But the appraisal came in at $650,000, $327,000. I was like, wow, he hit it on the number. Like, how good are you to be 327? Like, how do you, you know what I mean? I'm surprised there wasn't any sense behind that. Right. So it's like, yes, you'll be, unfortunately, people just hit the number. Yep, there's enough, because they're lazy and they don't want to really do the full work. But again, if your buyer bought a property and it's like, oh, we have 30,000 of equity, perfect, or we have 50,000 of equity. Oh, now we can maybe refi, because now we can get out of PMI earlier because we know we have equity built in. So, you know, appraisers should not just be trying to hit a number. We want to figure out what market value is. It does make it a lot easier when we have a number that's in front of our face. Okay, is there enough to support this number? But yeah, unfortunately, it is what it is. I think you said you had another question.
Yeah, just really quick, because I've never done one of these. You mentioned earlier a pre-list appraisal. Are there,
Yeah.
what is that like? So I'm a listing agent. We're going to price it. Not sure what to price it at. We order one from you guys. Is it a different price? Do you guys do anything different than you do when it's in escrow?
Honestly, it's the same robust appraisal that you'd get from a lender. Okay. Here's the benefits. The benefits is, usually I have the homeowner will call me and goes, my agent, you know, is saying that we should list here. I feel like it's something different. Can you come out and give us an independent appraisal so we know where we should be at, right? Yeah. Sometimes I have the agent saying, hey, you know what, I have a tough property and I don't know where to fall at. It's kind of all over the place. Can you give us an independent appraisal? Now, it does two things. It does one, now you can list above my recommendations, my opinion of value, right? But it also, if it's a tough property, it's going to go through escrow. Someone else is going to have to come out and do that same appraisal. So typically my appraisal is given to the other appraiser saying, hey, we just got this appraised 30 days ago. Here's all the data the other appraiser utilized. Hopefully this helps you, right? Because you're basically saying, like, I don't know if you're as committed to doing a stellar job as the appraiser did, the first one. So, here's some data that will help you. And typically I'll use information from another appraiser if I find it to be credible. I go, oh yeah, cool, thank you. Or if it's a house that is shaped, this weird shape, and you go out and measure it. I've used measurements from other appraisers as well. Like I just measured a property yesterday for a condo downtown. It was previously marketed on the MLS as 840 square feet, but tax records at 730. And I went out and measured it and it's 730. Now, yeah, you're saying, oh, Sidney, it's just, 110 square feet difference. Yeah, but if price per square foot downtown is $700, that makes a huge difference in your list price, right? So those kind of things can be helpful. And now they're going to hit the market at 730. Forget about what it was previously marketed for in the MLS, because agents can say anything and go buyer to verify, or per building records or builder, whatever it is. Builders are wrong all the time. Maybe it's supposed to be 840 square feet or whatever it was, and 730. So those kind of things can be helpful up front.
Appreciate
What's your take? Yeah. What's your take when agents meet you at the property and They may have a few comps that they want to show you as well or whatever. Like, what's your take on that?
I love that because at least I know we're on the same page. What I do also love is when if your client has done a remodel, I like an itemized list of that remodel. I don't need receipts. So no one needs to go dig for receipts because I'll know, like if you're like, oh, this property is completely tricked out, I'll see it. But if you give me an itemized list, I'm like, okay, great, thank you. Now I could put that in the report per client, per agent. I just put it right back in the report. Here's the list that they've done. Right. Again, I don't have to assume that information. I put it back on you guys. Like, hey, this is what they said was done. What we don't care for typically are backup offers. Like, I get it. I'm really aware that the rates are crap right now. I'm aware that there's no inventory. I'm aware that every house that's listed is going to have 20 offers. I get it. Right. Because offers don't equate sales. We don't base the appraisal on pending or active sales. We base the appraisal on closed sales and closed sales only. What pendings do may provide you with some the trend in the market, but it's not. It doesn't give us any weight. Now that we're on that about let's prep. Let me see before I get into that. Okay. I want to talk about thirst in the market, okay? When it comes to comps. So let's say today is what? I don't know. I don't know about you guys, but since COVID, I don't know what the days are, the dates, all that stuff is gone. But anyway, maybe that's just me. So today's Tuesday the 22nd, right? Let's say I'm coming out I give you guys a call today, like, hey, I want to come out and appraise your property. You're like, oh, great, let's do it tomorrow on Wednesday the 23rd. Perfect. If you guys know that a comp is going to close, that's going to help your property in the next couple of days, do not schedule the appraisal until after that property closes. I don't even care if you tell me, like, hey, Sidney, I talked to another agent. There's a property that's closing on Thursday. Can we set the appraisal for Friday? Absolutely. Here's the thing. There's a couple of things. There's something called effective date. The effective date of the appraisal is the day I go out. So if you're like super thirsty, is what I like to call it, and you're like, oh yeah, let's do it on Wednesday, and the comp that's supposed to help you closes on Thursday, I can't use it because it's after the effective date. Okay. Now I'll go back out if you and the lender want me to go back out, but they're gonna have to charge you for another appraisal for the new effective date. That makes sense. I know it's kind of like it sounds stupid, but we have to stick by those guidelines. So even if you're like, hey, I know this property, and the other side of that, if you know a property is going to close, that's probably not going to help you, then let's get that property scheduled, right? So I don't have to use that comp because I'm like, hey, everything is done as today, the 22nd or the 23rd or whatever day that it is. So really be keen on what's happening, what's about to close. Now, you have to be also aware of that 17-day contingency period when the appraisal was ordered. If it was ordered late and you're kind of down to like a few days, then either you have to get an extension and, you guys have to work that stuff out. I don't really get involved in that, but I just know I've been around this for so long that, these things, I've seen them hurt deals, especially if it's FHA VA where that FHA case number is attached to that deal for 6 months. Like, don't blow it because you're too eager to get this scheduled when a comp can help you 2 days later, help your property actually have more strength behind that.
So you guys are okay with that then when if something comes up,
totally.
It's like, hey, you know what, I know we're scheduled next week, but in 3 days I just found out there's going to be another comp and we really need that. So are you guys pretty flexible to like say, hey, I can come back in 3 days? Or are you guys pretty much like, yeah, I can't see you for another week and a half?
I am, and my staff is. I have 3 other appraisers and we rock, and this is what we do. This is why I'm just being as, honest with you guys as possible. Now, a part of life is having that, EQ, you got to feel people out. They're like, hey, you know what? We're not available to schedule the appraisal to this day. You guys can frame it how you want. You could be blunt. If it's me, like, hey, Sidney, this comp's going to help us, or like, hey, I know there's supportive data that's going to be closing, really soon in the next, 48 hours. I'd want to wait to, schedule the appraisal on this day, or just say, hey, I can't schedule the appraisal until this day, and just leave it at that because this is going to help you, right? So typically I don't look for comp data for an inspection until the day before I go out. So, you know, sometimes the morning of, but pretty much the day before I go out, I'll like, okay, let me figure out what my day is going to be like, and then pull all my data. So, all right. All right, so how to prep for an appraisal. Number one, I don't know why this is still an issue, but it is. CO detectors, smoke alarms, water heater straps drives me, you know, I don't really care, but I just get paid more because I come back to the property for 150, 200 bucks to just take photos of these things. You guys can't send us photos because it's just too, the liability is too high, right? We can go down that road in regards to like, there's a fire in a house or there's a gas leak. And I put, you know, you guys sent me a photo and I put, there's a CO detector in there, but it wasn't in there because someone just took it out of their house because they wanted the deal to close. And then, you know, this goes to court and they're like, well, Sidney, you said there's a CO detector. Can you attest to that? Well, no, the realtor sent me that. Oh, really? You know, it's a whole, not to say that you guys are liars, but people lie and people want their deals to close and will do just about anything to make that happen. But let me be really helpful in this aspect. You don't know who your buyer is going to be. It could be VA, it could be FHA, it could be conventional, right? So typically the way it's written now is there needs to be one smoke alarm per floor and one CO detector per floor. But again, you don't know who your buyers are going to be. What I would advise is put a smoke alarm in all the bedrooms and a smoke alarm outside of the bedroom. If you have the primary bedroom on the west wing and the other 3 bedrooms on the east wing, there needs to be a smoke alarm outside of the bedroom on the west wing and a smoke alarm outside the bedrooms, the rest of the bedrooms on the east wing, and there needs to be a smoke alarm in each bedroom. CO detector, still 1 per floor. So I go to property, oh yeah, we had a smoke alarm. Yes, but it's an FHA buyer, VA buyer, and now it doesn't, you know, you no longer, what's the word I'm looking for, comply with the guidelines. Water heater straps, it needs to be dual water heater straps. It doesn't matter if it's in one of those closets, you know how they have like their own private closet or whatnot for the water heater. This is for earthquake. They don't want there to be an earthquake. You're not home. The water heater, you know, falls down and it floods the property. This is those simple things that it's been like this for, I don't know, maybe almost 10 years, but we're still getting properties you go to and there's no CO detectors, no smoke alarms, no water heater straps. It just extends the transaction, right? And then everyone's on a frantic to put them in. So please, health and safety, those things are necessary. Number 2, condition for FHA VA, it says no chipping paint, deferred maintenance. You know, once upon a time, we were all just awesome people. We just wanted every house to be turnkey. We moved away from that, which is fine. But essentially what FHA VA says is the paint or the wood needs to be protected. So it could be stain, it could be primer. It doesn't have to match. But if we just start to look at these, again, you don't know who your end buyer is going to be. So when you walk the property with your clients, you're like, hey, we might want to touch up on that, you know, just so, you know, we can accept the buyer from all walks of life, FHA, VA, conventional. And many times conventional lenders are adopting the FHA, VA standard because they're knowing like that house is going to last longer, right? Does someone make their mortgage payment or do they, you know, fix, you know, the eaves on their property, right? You don't fix the eaves on your property and then now the roof is messed up. It's just an ongoing problem. So those are the FHA, VA things. Number 3, meet the appraiser. Yes, meet the appraiser. And those are the reasons why, because you guys go to caravans, you guys walk in properties, you know the layout of a home. There may be something that I don't know about that subdivision or that market area that could be pertinent to, you know, a proper like reconciliation of value. So yes, meet the appraiser. You know, I don't think people, like most appraisers don't want to be like followed everywhere. I think the coolest realtors that I know are just like, hey, you know, I'll open the door, let me know if you need anything. I have some comps for you, but if you don't mind, can we just do that once you're done with your inspection? Because I show up to a house with a phone and a laser. Like I don't have a clipboard anymore. So if you give me comps, I'm always like, can I leave it here and then I'll pick it up later? And sometimes I leave, like, oh shoot, I left her, I messed her comp data. So let's just have that conversation at the end. again, I do it on my phone. So all my comps are in my phone on my cloud program. I can look at it, oh, perfect. We have all the same data. I'll still take your comps because you printed it, and then I'll let my kids scribble on it, like all good. Right. So yes, I don't mind the comp data because I want to know where you're coming from. And if there's an issue, we can have a conversation about it. I can't let you know where it's going to come in at, especially if you're the listing agent, right? Because there's negotiations and all those kind of things. So, and again, number 4 is what we already had a conversation about. Like, don't be too thirsty when it comes to, you know, scheduling the appraisal. If it's within contingency periods and you know something's going to maybe help you, let's schedule an appraisal afterwards. So, all right. So pre-appraisal, I think we kind of talked about pre-appraisal, what that was with the last gentleman. And here's what it helps with: establishing a market value with complex properties, selling the property without price drops, and helps really settling the seller's emotions. I think a lot of the times, I don't mind to be the bearer of bad news. I do price adjustment appraisals as well, where it's like, oh, we wanted to test the market and obviously it didn't work. And like, I don't mind to be the bad guy. I have a way of kind of communicating with people to make them understand the data and all those kind of things. So, you know, really, you know, include me as a part of your team. When you want to have these conversations with your clients, like, I come as independent, but obviously, you know, look, at the end of the day, we want these deals to work, right? But I'm also not going to, I can't make up numbers. I remember I asked this realtor one time, like, hey, how'd you come up with this property, this price? And she told me, she goes, oh, I just know what people are willing to pay for. I go, wow, that's incredible. But I can't tell that to the lender. Like, they want data, you know? So lead with data. And I think everyone should be a winner in all of this. And then last slide, here he goes. Look at that. That's my IG. If you want to follow me on IG, communicate with me, that's my contact. Those are like my services. I only do about, I don't know, 10 to 50% of my business is probably origination, lender work. Only because in 2008, when I was in it and the market crashed, so did my business. So a lot of what I do is like with your investors, we do pro formas, we do commercial. So it's outside of the box, you know, but it's what everybody kind of wants to build their portfolio and they want to be creative and things of that nature. Yes, we work with lenders, but I just designed my business to not be dependent on them. So, like, again, when life happens, they come to you guys first. You're the realtors, you're the first point of contact, and then everything else happens. So take a picture of that or save it or whatever. Yeah, I think that's it.
Awesome.
Ashley.
We have just a couple more questions.
Yeah, please go for it. This is your time.
Yeah, Brittany asks, adding to Tulane's question, how much value does a pool add? Also, a view versus no view.
So, again, a view, no view, I can tell you 50 grand. Then you're going to hang your hat on 50 grand. But it could be 100 grand, it could be 75, it could be 25. It's every market is different. What is the view of? You know, if you're in La Jolla and you have a canyon view, awesome. You know, if you have a sweeping, you know, 240-degree view of the ocean, both, you know, south, west, and north, like, this is real estate. You guys got to nerd out on this stuff, right? If you're really into it, you can go seek that information. Again, we need to look at what I'm trying to do now is create kind of like a program where, just think of it like your screen, and there's like 100 boxes on this screen, right? And I'm trying to get it to where every box is a dollar amount for view. Let's say every box is like 10 grand. So if you have a view, an array that's like here, this is going to be worth 70 grand. This is going to be worth, and I'll be glad to sell it to you guys when I'm all done with it. But no. So yeah, I mean, you guys will have to start looking at that as appraisers do, as far as clusters. Like, okay, let me find homes with minimal views. Let me find homes, and this is going to put the pressure on realtors on how you write your MLS, because now you're going to start writing the MLS as far as like, oh, I may need to use this one day or come back to it, or one of my peers may need to use it, or the appraiser can get a lot of value if I write it this way. Yes, it's going to be a little bit romantic for the buyer to read it and go, oh, this property, but also have that in your back of your mind, like, how will this be compared? How can I use this information to compare it to the next home? You know, because you may 3 months down the line be back with another listing. Oh yeah, I remember I used this property. Because let's say you guys are going on a date tonight, right? And you're like, okay, I want to go get, Indian. So you're gonna go on Google, go best top 3 Indian restaurants in my neighborhood. If you're starting to go to like number 10, there's a problem, right? We do the same thing. Like, I don't have time to look at 50 comps. I just don't. So I'll look at the subject write-up of the subject property and go, okay, these are the features. I'll just go in the MLS under the remark section or the keyword search. I'll just put full remodel, I'll just put all the features that it has, and that's the comps that I want to look at. So I may miss a comp if it was poorly written by a realtor that didn't describe their property, correctly. So that's it. I only want to look at, like, give me 10 comps. I don't want to look at 50. So that's how we kind of structure, when we're looking for comp data. So I think, Gary, you said, do we hit a number? Well, no, I don't hit a number, but I'm looking at as competitive as I can to the subject property, right? And then make adjustment factors for any differences. So that's essentially is what we're doing. There's no set number. I wish I could tell you. Now I can go back in my files and go, oh, when I appraised this property, the view was this amount, but it doesn't necessarily apply to your property because you're not the neighboring home, right? So there's no number for that. And I think what may even help, on listing appointments is to use that information that way. Maybe it's another way, like, every home is unique. Like, I can't just come in already with a set number for your property. I haven't even seen it. Like, and people tell me all the time, Sidney, how much does an appraisal cost? I'm like, I don't know. Like, it could be $400, could be $3,500. Like, I don't know nothing about your property, what's going on, condition, size, location. Like, I know none of that. How can I quote you on something without first seeing it, right? So, but yeah, sorry to not answer your question, but to answer it, go deep dive, create a spreadsheet, right? Let's say you're in, 92120, and you're like, okay, in this map grid or this area, here's the views. Create that spreadsheet. Oh yeah, last time I this home was the value of this was X amount. Perfect. Just put that on the shelf. Next time you're in that neighborhood or you have that listing, at least you have a starting point to where you can look at for data. So that's what we do.
Awesome. Thank you. Next question is from Ashley. She says, I have a listing that has a gravel yard behind the property. How do you adjust the amount based on this issue?
It has a gravel yard, meaning like a quarry or something? Like, what do you mean by that?
So Ashley, I don't know if you're
Ashley,
able
you
to
wanna
unmute. Is it like a gravel backyard area?
It's in Encinitas. It's RCP. So it's a full on like gravel business right in the backyard. And we already reduced it 200K. People come in and they're like, oh, they love it, the price, everything. Then they go upstairs and they can see it from the balconies. And then they're very quiet and they leave. So Tulane and I, it's our listing. We're kind of struggling a little bit with it. Love any advice you could give.
Couple things. Very, very fast growing and high trees should probably be planted in that property to obscure the view, right? Although they know the location is there, right? 1, 2, I would look at, remember when I said competitive sales, it could be positive or negative. So for that, we call that an external obsolescence because it's never going to go away. RCP is a great location. They're probably never going to leave. So what's the impact on that is where I want to start. I want to look at far and wide. Maybe I can go far and wide to find other homes in maybe suburban neighborhoods or whatnot that have negative impact, commercial influence, whether it's a busy street, whether it's a 7-Eleven, whether it's a gas station, whatever it is, that impacts that property. So you have to go back to the drawing board and look at all of those properties that have sold in the last 12, 24 months that have a negative impact, commercial, big spaces, industrial, things like that. What did those homes sell for versus a home that did not have that impact, same size, same market area? Whatever that difference is probably where you want to start when it comes to pricing out that property. So that'd be 1. 2 is maybe a credit to buyers saying, we'll go to, whatever Moon Nursery and we'll load up this backyard with greenery so you may not see it. That's another strategy on appeal factor. But I would say for comp search for the appraisals, you need to go back and look at negatively impacted commercial spaces next to residential homes and see what those homes are selling for versus non-impacted homes.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it doesn't matter how remodeled it is. Like you said, people go upstairs and you go, oh, don't want to see that, you know?
Right.
So,
right. Even with us reducing the price, we're like, but what is that dollar amount that people are willing to overlook it? Right. That's the tough part.
Yeah.
But gave me some good info, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, you got my email. Shoot me the property. Maybe we can have a conversation after this. But yeah, that's where I would start. Is again, I might go even back 2 years just to see, like, is there a trend, in value from 24 months, 18 months, 12 months, 6, that I can say, hey, look, have that conversation, because you're going to keep reducing until someone goes, oh, okay, then they're going to undercut that and go, oh, well, it's been reduced twice. Now you really want to sell it. You have no buyers. Let me just really stick it to you and give you this. So, and then you have to know, well, how will it be appraised at the end of the day? Will that match that offer, or will it be contingent upon the appraisal? And then you have some bozo coming out that doesn't know what they're doing, and then it really messes it up, right? So, yeah.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, I'll definitely reach out to you. I really appreciate your help. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure.
All right, just a couple more questions before we wrap up. Jesse asks, how many comps on average do you use to compare?
I would say 4 to 6. That's usually standard. You only need 3, but I just feel like 3. What we always must do, and this is back to maybe what Ashley was speaking on, and is like we have to bracket all portions of that property. So if you have a 7,000 square foot lot, I want to have my comps either exactly or 6,500, 7,200 square footage, or GLA. GLA is gross living area, so I want to bracket that. I want to bracket bedroom and bathroom counts. I want to bracket negative impact on commercial spaces next to properties. All those things have to be bracketed. So think about that as well when you're looking at, because I get this question too, is, hey, Sidney, my client has a 3-bedroom, but they have this den that they're thinking about putting up doors and to make it a 4-bedroom. Should they do that? I go, well, I don't know. My question to you is, the comps that you see in the market area, are there mostly 4 bedrooms or mostly 3 bedrooms? If there's mostly 3 bedrooms, don't do it, because you're not going to get a lot of value for that 4th bedroom, right? If there's mostly 4 bedrooms, absolutely slap some French doors on that thing. Go to IKEA and affix a closet to that room, and now it's a 4th bedroom that acts as it could be a closet, it could be a bedroom, it could be an office. It frees slowly. Yes, then you do that. So again, I'm only doing that because I'm bracketing what the market is dictating to me, what that market wants. The same thing with new construction. Just because you have a 4-bedroom with a loft or a 5-bedroom, same exact square footage, there's not always going to be an adjustment factor there. That's typically on how many kids people have. If you have 3 kids, you want a 5-bed. If you have 3 kids, you probably want a 4-bedroom, right? So it's only on the resale that the market will tell you, oh, well, the market says no, 4 bedrooms with a loft is better, or 5 bedrooms is better. So always look at that as well when it comes to spec homes, new construction, all those kind of things. Spec homes as well, like, where are the other spec homes? Go to communities where they have spec homes. How did the spec home was compared to another home, even though it was fully remodeled? Which one sold more? Use that same percentage on your next adjustment factor, and how you list those things as well. So.
Yeah, that kind of goes into our next and last question here. Shireen asks,
drum roll, are we drum rolling this thing?
Yeah, how would you comp a newly built tract home that still have models for sale if there are no other resales in the neighborhood?
Tract homes, like new development, typically all our comps are coming from the sales office. But then I'll look at other markets with new construction as well. Because typically we go into those homes when they're still under construction. So that's what we call the hypothetical condition. We know something to be true, but we're treating it as if it's not, right? So yes, the home isn't completed, but we're going to appraise it as it is completed. So we base that on what are the additional upgrades that they have chosen on their property that's outside the standard stuff, right? So we want to get a list of those things from the sales office. And then we make the adjustment factors based on that. So whether they add another 100,000, 30,000, this, did they buy the solar? Did they lease the solar? New construction, all those things are analyzed, and then we make the adjustment factors there. But typically on new construction, whether it's South Bay or wherever it is, North County, we are looking at the sales office for the data because they have the sales.
Gotcha. And you could probably just call the sales office and ask if they have a report or if they have those recent sales available as the agent.
Sure. Typically some new construction, they're really cool about agents. Some of them are like, nope, we just deal with our in-house. We don't, they don't want to give you guys a credit to bring a buyer in. You know how that shit goes. But I would say that they usually have an appraisal packet, which has all, because they know we've been asking for it. So they have like their plat map. They'll have all the sales. Like if it's a plan B, we want to stick to plan Bs, all those kind of things for the appraiser. And they'll have a list of sales, and we'll go in and highlight which ones. Like let's say they're all of them are plan Bs. Then it's like, well, what's the upgrades of the subject to? Like, what's that dollar amount? What did they do? And then we'll have to look at all the comps that they give us. What kind of upgrades did they do? So now we're looking at basically it's back to basics. Like, okay, they did this, they did this. So they put 100 grand, they put in 40 grand. So the difference would be essentially almost 60,000 because it hasn't been lived in. So you have to take those numbers on actual, so to speak. But yeah, that's how we would kind of treat that. And then we could go back to the prior plans that say that was completed. Let's say they're currently in phase 6. We can go back to phase 5 and 4 and see those numbers make sense. When the 100,000 of upgrade, 40,000, did that really compute as far as 4 and 5 as well, and all those kind of things. It can get sticky. Like I love it. I love numbers. We're all about it. My team is just stellar. But it can get like, you just want to like go have a drink sometimes because it's, it could be a lot, but for us, we feel like we're always cataloging everything. So we do the work, right the first time. It saves us, again and again, because we'll come back to it. So might be something you guys can think about.
Yeah.
I still want you to call me. I mean, right? I still want you to call me, but because you guys are marketers, right? You guys are not really selling anything. You're just marketing properties that other people enjoy. And then my job is to look at the same. I use the MLS too. We just analyze it with a different lens because I'm not advocate for buyer or seller. My job is I want to get the proper value. I geek out on like, oh, I just want to get the right value, like, and do the best job that I can, more than like, oh, I want my client to get the best deal possible. Like that's not what I care about. And I'm not here to gas people up. So my investors, it's like, and I'll leave at this, like I always tell them, like, I'm not here to make you feel good, because if I'm here to make you feel good and you're going to invest 300 grand on this project and you can't get that back, you're going to look at me and go, you don't know what you're talking about. I'd rather you go, Sidney, I don't agree. And then later on, you're like, wow, you're just a genius. How did you guess this? Right. Because my value is to give you the proper numbers. Because when you make that investment, whether it's an investor, your client, whoever, that is returnable, so yeah.
Yeah, it's like you said, you would do everyone a disservice if you were just trying to make them happy or not actually appraise the property at what it's valued at. So
exactly.
Yeah, awesome. Sidney, thank you so much. What a treat.
Yeah.
I'm going to post all of your information on our Slack channel and blast it out to our whole team. Be sure to go follow him on Instagram. That's where we found you for our training today. So
yeah, sweet. Awesome.
Yeah, thank you so much. And we will see you all later. All right. Have a good day, everyone. Thank you, Sidney.
Reach out to me, guys, if you guys have any questions, especially that Insidious one, Ashley. Seems like it's pretty difficult, but I'm here.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much. All right. Bye, everyone.
Ciao.